So, Epiphanius, should we play a little game?
Let's play a game.
So, would you like to start? Would you like to share a little bit about what we've been working on here?
Okay, so a very brief introduction to this notion called monanarchy. The monanarchy is basically a hierarchy which maps out a relationship between the two polarities in that hierarchy, namely the monarch and the anarch. And the interior of the pyramid shows a sort of ascending complexification of skill and capacity and attainment, leading to a transcendent moment where connection between top and bottom is realized. And so that's a very, very brief overall look. So the four domains are at the base: direct experience, which is exactly as it says. I mean, no explanation is really required for that. Moving up to information, where that direct sensory experience begins to be categorized and analyzed and characterized and preferences shown and this kind of thing. The third domain of knowledge is again a synthesis of that information into useful employments of that information. And so again, it's about cross-referencing, it's about recording, it's about teaching and learning, it's about passing knowledge down, that kind of thing. And then finally at the top is the notion of wisdom, which is the final integration of all of the knowledge and all of the information and all of the experience you have into the making of optimal decisions. And then those optimal decisions inform, right down at the bottom again, the quality of the experience that you can extract from the world, and so on and so on and so on. And the idea is that this basic map applies at all scales. So it applies within the individual, it applies within a relationship of a few individuals to each other, into the broader community, into the world at large, ultimately. I think that's probably enough for me to say as a basic introduction. Oops.
The monarchy, the monarch, the anarch, and the synergy of the two. The monarch at the summit, the nexus of sovereignty, the nexus of the decision-making. The anarch at the bottom, the myriad explorers, the myriad pores of the membrane through which experience seeps in, experience seeping in through the porous anarchical membrane, and then flowing inwards towards the core where the monarch resides. The monarch integrates the information and selects, decides between alternating timelines that will benefit the monarchy the most. Increasing scope, capacity, sovereignty, wisdom, constraint, abstraction as we go up the hierarchy. So as we go up the hierarchy, we encounter more and more decision-making power. Or the decision-making power isn't concentrated in the monarch, but it is validated by the sovereign core. But on the way up and on the way down, there are various degrees of sense-making, of meaning-making, of taking decisions according to the amount of information that lies at that specific level. So we're always oscillating between these positions, between the position of the monarch and the position of the anarch. And we're trying to cultivate our sovereignty, and we're trying to cultivate our agency, our sovereignty in the monarch and our agency in the anarch. We're cultivating the core of our being, where the fundamental laws of our life lies. And we're cultivating the agency, our capability to further explore the environment in novel ways.
The notion of the constant feedback between the monarch and the anarch, that they are in a sense the same thing. They're very much two sides of the same coin. And so within each of the four domains, in the direct experience domain, there's raw feelings, but sensing is about attention. And so attention is a form of sovereignty over your feelings, that choosing where to direct, you know, to choosing which feelings to focus your attention on. And that is where the sensory input is focused. This is the relevance realization. In the information section, you know, exploring is a pretty free and open process. There's no boundaries to it, but the process of mapping then informs exploring. It makes the exploring selective, what's relevant, what's important, what's necessary. In the knowledge section, the learning and relating. So learning is having absorbed information and internalized information, but until you start relating that internalized information with other internalized information and with information of the outside world and how to act in that outside world and feedback from other people and so on, this deepens the knowledge. And this opens the door to the possibility of wisdom when you have completely integrated this, the monarch and anarch and the monarch and anarch through all of these iterations. As you work your way up, you are now finally, only now finally capable of making effective, wise decisions, which not only serve oneself in the moment, but also serve the entire monarchy by broadening the possibility of experience that can be had right back down at the bottom of the anarch again.
The monarch, the sovereign, the anarch, the agent. The integration of the hierarchy on all levels guides us to the good life. The individual who has integrated the brain stem to the neocortex, weaving all the different levels together of having a healthy deep breath at the bottom and the greatest sensitivity to the world at the top. Integrating the hierarchy in society. Giving the anarch the direct connection to the monarch and the capability to influence the monarch's decision. So the monarch has an extremely high resolution informational source in an anarch, which is integrated into the monarch's informational processing capabilities. The monarch representing in embodied form, in the form of actual human beings, in the form of a royal family, a royal tribe, that is not defined by bloodlines, but is defined by democracy, by a competition of who can be the best symbolic representation of the divine here on earth, who can maintain such perfect poise that they can participate in divine rituals that bind the whole population together. How can we create a processing capability of the monarch, maybe in the form of artificial intelligence, who is capable of taking the decisions that we need to create a better world in an era of increasing complexification? So there is no one individual who could be sufficiently educated to take the decisions necessary to prevent the collapse of civilization and to lead us into a greater future. There's not even a family or a group of people. There's no collective intelligence that is capable on its own to produce this level of decision making. So what is needed? What is needed is a monarch that syntegrates the best of artificial intelligence and the best of collective intelligence. A monarch which has access to as much information as possible, can integrate that information into making decisions, but is always tempered by a human soul, by a human collective intelligence who can help guide this AI towards making decisions that will not only benefit the monarch, but will benefit the anarch and the monanarchy as a whole.
The monarchy as a whole is an expression of balance above and beyond anything else. It seems worth mentioning, looking at, exploring what happens if one dominates the other, if they get out of balance with each other, if one dominates the other. And this is clearly a massive oversimplification, but again, looking at each of these four domains, if sensing dominates feeling, so if the monarch dominates the anarch in this balance, in this interplay, in this dance between the two poles, if that healthy dance is interrupted and sensing, for example, dominates feeling, then what your expectations of the world dominate your ability to actually be in the world. If the feeling dominates the sensing, you're overwhelmed all the time. You can't put anything in any kind of order. You're overwhelmed all the time. And so the interplay, the balance between these two things, the constant dynamic interplay between at every level and at every scale is the really crucial essence of this. I mean, again, moving up another one, mapping and exploring. This is the now becoming almost a cliche phrase of, you know, don't confuse the map with the territory. If you get fixated on the map, you are not capable of exploring. You're not capable of seeing the territory for what it is. Equally, if you don't map the territory, you end up exploring the same thing over and over and over again, being unable to learn and retain anything from it, being unable to abstract, and therefore being unable to expand the territory that you can explore, and so on and so on. But I think that the notion of maintaining the balance between the monarch and the anarch is a crucial thing to hold primary at all times.
The flow of energy between the anarch and the monarch. The anarch collects the resources, sends them up to the monarch, for the monarch to decide how should the resources be distributed. So the anarch sends up the resources, and the monarch has mapped where is there a surplus, where is there a deficit, and can rebalance the distribution of resources in the hierarchy so that the anarch can be in the best possible health and the monarch can be in the best possible health. So this is a ritual. This is a ritual of redistribution that can be performed by actual people, where one pulls together resources, the anarch and all the levels in between up towards the monarch come together and give their excess, and those who are in need come to the same place, and the monarch can redistribute in symbolic form, but also in concrete redistribution to the people who are in need. And beyond that, the monarch can represent divine principles such as chance and fate. And in these rituals, people can receive some of the surplus by chance. Just like one is born by chance into a specific family, into a specific position in the hierarchy, this regular ritual would reproduce that dynamic. And maybe by chance, in this year of the turn of the globe, you will be lucky enough to receive a gift from the gods, which is a prize of some sort, a surprise of some sort. This year, instead of living the way that you have lived, you will live the next year with a plane ticket to wherever you want. 1 year round, you can go and explore the globe. And you've received this not by any merit, just by the pure chance, just like others have received things by no merit, but just by the pure chance of their birth. You too have the possibility to benefit from the chance of the gods. So the monarchy aims to re-ritualize society in a way that links the monarchy and the anarchy, of generating new ways of representing in symbolic form the importance of the monarch and the importance of the anarch. So one question would be, what kind of symbolic embodiments could be created for the anarch?
The notion of honoring and embodying this balance and interplay through ritual and ceremony feels super important. I mean, such things already exist, right? Coronations of kings and queens, you know, the anarch comes out in their millions to honor the, you know, to honor the monarch, and the monarch bestows their blessing in exchange. I mean, I know this sounds, to the modern ear, this kind of thing can sound very silly and out of date, but the archetype of the king and the blessing of the king creates fertility and prosperity and happiness and so on in the kingdom. I mean, it's a very ancient and archetypal notion, and the loss of these rituals, and also the loss of ritual, worth coming back to, but the blockage that exists currently in the world, where everything gets channeled up to the monarch, but then the blessing of the monarch is not fully bestowed. Yeah, the cycle is not properly completed. A lot of it gets jammed up there. The resources in the broadest sense of the word, not just stuff, but the energy, the creativity, the devotion, and so on, the attention, I guess, above all else, is not redirected and rechanneled. So the king archetype is the embodiment of strength and wisdom, but also compassion, and is a force of generation and driving forward and enrichment of all. Is at the heart of the monarch. Some slightly jumbled and random, not random, but slightly jumbled and not particularly well articulated thoughts there.
The monarch as the representations on earth of the Divine Mother and the Divine Father, and the anarch as the representation on earth of the Divine Child. The anarch renews the society through its explorations, through its collection of resources, and the monarch taps into the ancient wisdoms, ancient traditions, to best make the wise decisions necessary to guide a society. The flow of resources currently goes upwards towards higher levels of the hierarchy and does not get distributed back down. And this is what is preventing the flourishing of the society. The society flourishes when there is sufficient resources that can flow throughout the system in a way that maintains all parts of the hierarchy to, at the minimum, the foundation of survival. So the players can relax and thereby perform their tasks to their fullest function, rather than fighting within themselves and amongst themselves because of the amount of stress and anxiety that they have within their bodies. Right now, what is happening is the sovereignty of the anarch is being hijacked by the monarch. The sovereignty of the anarch to make decisions that belong to them and do not belong to others is taken away by the monarch, because the monarch currently is guiding the anarch, even manipulating the anarch through the use of symbols, through the use of false scarcity, to perform its will, not the will of the monarchy, but the will of the monarchy. Not the will of the totality, but the will of a part which is pretending to be the totality. Creating a set of affairs, creating an image of circumstances that gives the appearance of this is the way that things should be. This is the way that things have to be. There is no better hierarchy than the one that currently exists. This is the inevitable hierarchy. But this is a false dream. This is a false dream woven by dark dream weavers who are trying to maintain the hierarchy in a shape that benefits them the most. And that is the shape of the pyramid. That is the shape of imprinting the pyramid in the mind as the just hierarchy. But the image of the monarchy is elusive, because there's another half to this image. The other half is the same triangle flipped and placed at the top, the two tips connecting, which represents the flow of the resources up from the anarch to the monarch, continuing back up to the anarch again, and then another triangle on top. The resources flow again to the monarch and then continue upwards to the anarch. And this is the spiraling upwards of social evolution.
It's analogous to a form of distillation, right? The processing of experience through the various layers of refinement to the final attainment of wisdom and making of good decisions is a distillation into lower and lower resolution, but more and more powerful, like compression, yeah, like putting it into a zip folder. It's smaller and more portable, but at the same time, and lower resolution, but at the same time, far more capable. And then that distillation is passed on to the next cycle of the turn. So and that's the beginning of the next one, and then a further distillation and a further distillation, and the expulsion of that which is not necessary and not relevant, the breaking and reforming of that which is right, that which is needed, that which is good, if you will, is part of this oscillation which is created with the triangles alternating base to base, tip to tip on top of each other, creates this sense of oscillation.
The monarch represents the prize giver and the re-establishment of the new playground at the beginning and end of each turn. At the end of the turn, the monarch distributes the prizes to the various players, the fact that the prize comes from the monarch is symbolically important because it reproduces our relationship to our parents, but this time our relationship to the divine parents. And they reward the players who have played well. But also, they do not punish the players who have played poorly. They give back to the players who have lost in this turn. Players lose for many different reasons. Mostly because they have not received enough care. They have not been loved enough. They have not received the right kind of love which they need. At the end of the turn, the monarch gives love to the losers. It does not say, go and sleep on the streets. It does not say, I'll lock you up. I'll take away your freedom because you've made a mistake. No, the monarch loves and accepts the mistakes of the divine children and helps them prepare to the best of their capabilities for the next turn.
That feels almost like forgiveness. So this is not clear. Something along the lines of there's a religious dimension to this in the traditional sense of religion. In the Monanarchy could also be conceived of as man's relationship with God. That God is that man is the anarch, God is the monarch, and that right relationship between man and God consists of this reciprocity where man gives what he can of this world to God, and God in return makes sure that the earth remains bountiful for man. Something like that. But the idea of being able to include traditional religious doctrine within this framework feels quite appealing.